Okay, so get this. You handed us this book. It's by a former refugee, right? And he ends up a media mogul advising a king on, get this, property valuation,
Love that range.
right? It's Property Valuation Without the BS by Kizzi Nkwocha. And you clearly want the full deep dive on this one, which I got to admit, even I was surprised by how interesting it turned out to be.
Well, it's Kizzi Nkwocha, right? Using his background to explain property valuation. Fascinating.
It really is. Okay, so before we even get into the nuts and bolts, why does this even matter? Like, we're not all out here building real estate empires.
True, but whether you're renting, buying your first place, or, yeah, dealing with those empires, it matters. Kizzi emphasizes how this knowledge, it empowers everyone.
Hmm. I never thought of it that way. So it's not just for, like, the mansion crowd?
No, not at all. Think about it. Let's say you're buying that first apartment, right? Knowing about valuation could save you from overpaying or help you pick a place that's actually a good investment down the line.
Okay, that makes sense. And then for people selling, it's got to be about setting a price that's realistic, but also they're not losing out, all right?
Exactly. And lenders, too. They use this stuff to figure out loans. Imagine if property values were all over the place. Chaos.
Total chaos, yeah. So how do these valuers, I don't know, it's like real estate detectives or something, what are they even looking at to decide what something's worth?
It's a mix. Hard data, like the location, size, condition of a property, the obvious stuff. But then it gets interesting. They're factoring in like historical significance, any unique features, even if it could be developed more in the future.
So it's like a puzzle with some normal pieces, but then you're trying to jam in these weird-shaped ones too.
That's a great way to put it. And to make sense of it all, they use three main approaches: the sales comparison approach, the cost approach, and the income approach.
Okay, yeah, the book mentioned those. That cost approach, especially after that castle example, that one threw me for a loop.
I know. Try finding comparable sales for a medieval fortress with a moat, right?
So the cost approach, it's all about what would it cost to rebuild this thing today?
No kidding. So they're not calling up some medieval real estate agent.
Not quite. But they're looking at construction costs now, materials, labor, everything to basically replicate it, and then adjusting for how much it's depreciated over time.
So even if that castle's been there for centuries, they're basically saying, all right, brand new, what's this thing worth now? Exactly. Which shows how valuation isn't just about the past, but the present market and what it could be worth down the line.
Wow, okay, that makes sense. So if that cost approach is for the really unique stuff, then sales comparison, that's got to be the most common, right?
It is, especially for like your typical house. Think of it this way. You're buying a used car, you're going to look at what other similar cars are going for.
Totally. Yeah. To make sure you're not getting ripped off.
Exactly. Sales comparison is kind of the same. They look at what similar properties, same neighborhood, size, features, what have those sold for recently, and then they adjust.
Like if one house has a pool and the other's just got a sad little patch of grass.
Exactly. Those upgrades or downgrades all get factored in to reach a fair market value.
So it's like finding that property's siblings out in the world and seeing what they're going for.
And then we have the income approach. This one's all about properties that make money, rentals, commercial buildings, things like that.
Okay, so for landlords, investors are the folks trying to make a profit.
You got it. This approach is about how much income could this property potentially bring in. They look at rental rates, how often places are vacant, all the expenses. Helps figure out if the income justifies what you'd pay.
Like figuring out if your lemonade stand is going to actually turn a profit after you buy all the lemons and sugar. Yeah. Except, bigger stakes.
Exactly. Each approach has its place, right? The skill is knowing when to use which one and how to maybe blend them for the most accurate picture. But it's not just these three things.
Wait, there's more. You're telling me there's even more to this whole property valuation thing.
Oh, yeah. It's not as simple as plugging numbers into a formula. There's things like market conditions, zoning, even something called highest and best use, HBU for short.
Okay, now you're just using big words to make me feel lost. Highest and best use. What is that?
Think of it this way. You've got an empty lot, right? Just dirt right now. But it could be a parking lot, a park, a whole apartment building, even a skyscraper. Who knows?
Okay, so we're not just talking about what it is now. It's like, what's the best use for this thing to be worth the most?
You got it. Highest and best use, it's all about the most profitable use for that land, considering everything, zoning laws, what people even want, can you even afford to build it?
So like real estate chess.
Yeah.
Trying to think 5 moves ahead.
Exactly. And it applies to stuff already built, too, not just empty lots. Remember that story in the book, the old factory they turned into those fancy lofts?
Oh, yeah. They kept the brick and beams and stuff, right? That's HBU in action.
Bingo. They realized that building, it's not a factory anymore. The market wants those cool apartments. It's about adapting, understanding what buyers, renters, what they actually value now.
Kind of like seeing the potential in things that others might miss.
And speaking of seeing potential, market conditions, Kizzi Nkwocha, he's big on how ignoring that can be a huge EE mistake.
Yeah, that story about the investor who bought a ton of properties right before everything tanked. Ouch.
Right. Shows you got to pay attention to supply and demand, interest rates, even the whole economy. It all affects what something's worth.
Like, you can't control the weather, but you better check the forecast before going outside. Okay, but with all this stuff, the methods, the market, HBU, this is more art than science, isn't it?
There's definitely an art to it, yeah. Experience, knowing the market, a little gut feeling, it all plays in. But at its core, it's about understanding the story a property's telling.
Ooh, okay, I like that. Tell me more about this story.
Well, every property, it's got a history, right? Where it's at now and what it could be. Valuation, it's like uncovering that, figuring out what made it worth, what it and what might happen down the line.
So not just the numbers, but the whole, the narrative behind them?
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole thing so interesting. It's data, yeah, but also understanding the market, even a bit of storytelling.
Those stories Kizzi Nkwocha told in the book, those really made it click for me, like real-life examples of this stuff in action.
Absolutely. Remember the real estate agent who was obsessed with the sales comparison approach, kept missing out on deals?
Oh, right. Too busy trying to find the exact same house, they missed out on those fixer-uppers, or places that were just, different in a good way.
Exactly. So sales comparison, yeah, it's useful, but not the be-all, end-all. Sometimes you got to think outside the box, consider that cost approach, or how much money a property could actually make.
Like having a whole toolbox, got to use the right tool for the job. Speaking of that income approach, when is that the go-to?
Income approach. Perfect for anything bringing in that cash, apartment buildings, offices, even that lemonade stand we talked about, right?
Right. It's all about the Benjamins. But seriously, how does it actually work?
Imagine you're buying that lemonade stand. You want to know if you're actually going to make money, right? So income approach, similar idea. They analyze how much rent you could get, factor in expenses, taxes, repairs, all that. Helps determine if it's worth it.
So less about what it looks like, more about what it can bring in.
Exactly. And market trends matter here too. Rents going up in the area, demand for office space. It's about the bigger picture.
I'm starting to see how all this connects the methods, the market, HBU. It's like analyzing from every angle.
You got it. Understanding all those forces inside and outside the property that affect the value, and realizing it's not always an exact science, it's a process. It takes careful thought and good judgment.
Which brings us back to that art of it all. Kizzi Nkwocha's own story, that kind of proves it, doesn't it?
Absolutely. From refugee to advising a king on property. Talk about a crash course in valuation.
Shows you, this stuff, it's more than just textbooks. It's real world, knowing your stuff, connecting those dots.
Speaking of connecting the dots, remember his story about those Spanish real estate agents? Really shows how tech is changing the game.
The one where one's all about AI, the other's sticking with the old ways. What a difference.
Right. The AI one, analyzing data faster, spotting those trends, making smarter choices. The other one, kind of struggling to keep up.
Shows how tech can either be a huge help or leave you in the dust, depending on if you adapt right.
And that adaptability, that's key in property valuation, especially with how fast things are changing these days.
So we covered a lot here. The methods, market conditions mattering, that whole highest and best use thing, even tech getting involved.
And those stories from the book really brought it all home.
Golden nuggets of wisdom right there, showing how this stuff plays out in the real world. They really show it's more than just, here's the number, case closed. But how does all this, I don't know, actually HOLP someone listening right now?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Knowing's one thing, but how do we use it to make smarter choices when it comes to actual real estate?
Exactly. Like, someone out there's thinking about buying their first place. What should they be keeping in mind now, armed with all this property valuation knowledge?
First thing, don't just look at the price tag they're showing you, right? Check out those recent sales, similar places nearby. Anything unique about this property, good or bad, that could change things.
So, do your research. Don't fall in love with those fancy countertops if every other house on the block is selling for way less.
Exactly. And think about that highest and best use. Could this place be worth even more down the line? Is the neighborhood getting hotter?
Like those folks who bought up all the warehouses years ago, before they were the cool lofts to live
Yeah,
in.
exactly. They saw the potential, what it could be that others missed.
So not just what you see in Now W, but what it could turn into.
And don't forget those market conditions. Buyers in control or sellers. What are interest rates doing? Huge impact on price.
It's like checking if the tide's in or out before you go swimming. Right. Know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And if you're selling, got to be just as savvy.
Oh, for sure. Selling. Know what you've got. Don't undersell yourself.
But also price it right so it actually sells.
Exactly. Show off those upgrades, the things that ADD value. And be ready to back it up with data, show why your price is the right one.
Like going into a negotiation with, I don't know, superpowers. Knowledge is key. But it always circles back, doesn't it? That whole understanding the story thing.
Absolutely. That's what makes this so much more than just crunching numbers. It's uncovering the history, where it's at now, the potential future of that land, that building.
It's the forces at play, the trends, even just what people want that makes them buy, sell, invest in this stuff.
And that, understanding that, that's what lets us make those smarter decisions. Buying your first place, selling the family home, or, yeah, building that real estate empire.
Property valuation. Without the BS, I gotta say, really opened my eyes. This stuff's way more interesting than I thought.
Me too. Where else does data meet gut feeling, history meet future potential? Learning to read between the lines, that's how you find the real value.
And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive. It's been a pleasure exploring this insightful book with you.
Likewise. Until next time, everyone.
Happy valuing.